Picking the top 5 gaming desktops at a show like CES is not an easy task. There are so many, and the definition of desktop has become more and more broad in recent years. But we're going to kick things off with the MSI 27XT All-in-One. What makes this one special is the fact that it is an all-in-one that features a full-size graphics card mesh enclosure on the back of the unit that connects via a ribbon cable to a normal PCI Express 16X slot. There is no multi-card support, but when you compare this to something like a completely enclosed, non-upgradable all-in-one from the likes of someone like Apple, it is pretty impressive, especially for gamers. And that's not the only feature that might matter to gamers. The monitor that's included with it is a 144 Hz panel. Now, it is a TN panel, but it's got a 5 millisecond response time, and it will definitely be an improvement for gaming over the type of panel you'd normally find in an all-in-one. Storage is handled by an M.2 NVMe SSD. Oh wait, 2 of them in RAID 0, and the processor is a Core i7 non-K 6700. It's got a USB Type-C connector and an SDXC card reader, and starts at $1,700, not including the graphics card. You'll have to swap that one in on your own. Next up, we've actually got another all-in-one from Syber. This is a division of PowerPC, although the Cybers are actually spelled differently. This puppy is in a 34-inch 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide curved IPS monitor enclosure. It's full of desktop parts, and this is cool. There's nothing proprietary, so it's actually very customizable, and it's water-cooled. It's got an all-in-one liquid cooler from Asetek for the CPU that fits a 240mm radiator, and it can also fit a custom loop if you want something a little bit more exotic. It fits one full-size graphics card. It can hold 2.5-inch drives for SSDs or hard drives, although there is no 3.5-inch drive support, and has a small enough form factor that even though it's got a power supply inside, it actually doesn't look that unreasonably thick. So the Core i5 GTX 960 config starts at $900, but obviously the sky is pretty much the limit when we're talking non-proprietary parts. Next up, we've got the Digital Storm Aventum 3. Now, although the Aventum 3 has been out for a little while, this new version will have a new cooling system, and before we get inside, though, we need to take a look at the custom hand-painted chassis. This thing is massive at over 2 feet deep and over 2 feet tall, and can fit all standard motherboard sizes, as well as large dual CPU workstation boards, much like the one that we used in our 7 Gamers 1 CPU project. But of course, you gotta keep all that stuff cool somehow, and the Aventum 3 features this completely integrated cooling system that is absolutely fantastic looking. What's new here is the angled fittings to reduce the cracking that can sometimes occur with acrylic blocks. The case features support for 3 radiators, a 480mm and a 240mm included, that are all on the same loop, and has this amazing looking clear water distribution block behind the motherboard tray to cool all your components. Digital Storm partnered with EK for the cooling, so it's done by a company that really knows what they're doing, and they even take requests for things like custom chipset coolers and will install custom designed parts within reason. You can also even ask for a specific coolant color. It comes with cable covers and a power supply bridge on the back of the motherboard tray to keep everything tidy looking, and like most cases where you have power supply cables kind of crammed into a corner somewhere, and it features RGB lighting for the interior, exterior, and the cooling. The front I/O includes 2 USB 3.1 ports and a slim optical drive, and of course there's a gotcha. It starts at $5,800 with a CPU-only water cooling loop with flexible tubing instead of the now more premium-seeming rigid solution that I personally don't do because it's a lot of work, which is also why it's expensive, because it's a lot of work. The new cooling system is expected to be coming on January 27th. Which brings us to the ASUS RoG GT51. It supports RoG Band, an NFC wristband, which you can touch to the case to do 2 different things. You can activate Shadow Drive, a hidden partition for stuff you need to keep private, or you can automatically overclock, setting up a profile that the band will automatically activate to crank up your CPU for gaming and turn it back down to stock if you're just doing something like web browsing. It's actually got more functionality coming later, like auto Windows login. There's a GPU air tunnel that works with a shunt from the bottom front fan to direct air over the GPU, and the front fan has a cool turbine-esque design for the shroud. It features 8 million colors of RGB customization, a USB 3.1 Type-C front connector, pretty cool, mostly that's seen in the back, and it's got an amplified front audio jack for a little bit of extra punch for your headphones. It's available in mid to late Q1 and starting at $1,800. Which finally leads us to the iBUYPOWER Revolt 2. This guy has a really unique chassis design. It's kind of like this weird but surprisingly cool trapezoid thing. There's a tinted cover over the entirety of the top and half of the front that shows off your GPU on the very top, and up to 2 SSDs in the front, and the sides can be removed to reveal a very interesting internal layout that crams in a surprising amount of non-proprietary hardware, so you could put in pretty much any ITX case, full-size ATX power supply, 3.5-inch drive, and GPU that you could want, including liquid cooling, all without having to deal with any sort of thermal throttling. That bottom can actually support up to a dual 120mm radiator or a single 120 and a single 140 if you wanted to water cool both the CPU and the GPU. It's expected to be available sometime later this month. So thanks for checking out our top 5 gaming desktops from Intel of CES 2016. Get subscribed to Linus Tech Tips so you don't miss any of our awesome content, and thank you very, very much for watching.